Britons have had enough. A knife attack, which occurred in Belfast, Northern Ireland on Monday night, has once again brought the United Kingdom to the spotlight on its lack of anti-immigration policies. A 30-year-old Sudanese asylum seeker was arrested near the scene, where he reportedly attacked and seriously injured a 40-year-old man in a brutal and barbaric knife attack, attempting to behead the man. The victim remains in critical condition, and the suspect has been charged with attempted murder.
10:30 p.m. last night, a man in his 40s was subjected to an horrific, sustained knife attack in a street in North Belfast. He is in hospital in a serious condition, having suffered very severe injuries.
This is what we know so far. The incident happened in the Kinnard Avenue area on Monday the 8th of June at around 10:30 p.m. Officers arrived at the scene within minutes of the report to detain and arrest the suspect and to administer first aid. Colleagues from Northern Ireland Ambulance Service attended a short time later. The victim was taken to hospital with significant injuries to his eyes and serious slash wound injuries to his back and face. The suspect, a man in his 30s, who we now understand to be Sudanese, was arrested at the scene on suspicion of attempted murder. He is in custody, and at this time we are not seeking anyone else in connection with the investigation. And what is believed to be a kitchen knife was recovered at the scene.
Mr. Speaker, what occurred last night will have profound implications for community cohesion in this country. This needs to be a time for honesty and openness and truth. Will he confirm that he and his government recognise that uncontrolled immigration needs to end? Will he confirm that the government needs to reassure and protect our population, who for too long have had their concerns ignored? That the victim belongs in Belfast, but the attacker does not. Having abused the privilege of our nation, the perpetrator living in the UK under a 5-year visa.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer faced backlash on X after his response to the attack, stating that he has absolutely no tolerance for abhorrent scenes of violence like this on their streets. However, many critics argue that if the Prime Minister truly cared for his country, he would close the borders and prioritise the safety of his own citizens first.
Why are we allowing our native Brits to be at any risk of barbaric, medieval attacks like this? We need social cohesion, and the way you get that is through remigration and removing cultures which actively despise us. Those responsible for allowing our borders to be open and allowing the great replacement to take place in Britain have blood on their hands. Tony Blair and the Tory government that were in power for like 14 years, and then the continuation of that through Labour. And they claim, oh, migration's down. We don't need to just close our borders and stop migrants coming in. We need to actively remove millions of people. So all of them within Westminster that have enabled this are responsible for the brutal murders of too many native Brits.
Thousands of Britons were enraged after videos of the attack went viral on social media. Mass protests erupted all across the UK last night as Britons stood in solidarity against immigration. Leader of Restore Britain Party Rupert Lowe, in a post on X, requested for citizens to stay calm during the demonstrations and not attack the police. He emphasized that no matter how angry they are feeling, it is not worth it, and encouraged them to protest loudly but peacefully. However, the situation in Northern Ireland turned volatile quickly after hundreds of anti-immigration protesters gathered in multiple areas. Vehicles, buses, trash bins, and even homes housing immigrants were torched. Authorities are monitoring the situation with heightened alertness.
But let's touch on something else here, which is, this idea of calmness. Now, as I reiterate now, but I spoke about this at the beginning of the video, of course, calmness in, let's take a protesting situation, is necessary. In fact, again, I can read now what it is Rupert put out very recently regarding the notion of calmness, and it essentially articulates exactly what it is I want to say. So, patriots, if you're protesting tonight in Belfast or elsewhere, do not give Starmer what he wants. Stay calm, keep your heads, do not attack the police. The state will show you no mercy. The dangerous far right, in quotation marks, will be blamed, and your life will be ruined forever. It will be that brutal. However angry you're feeling now is not worth it. Protest, but do it loudly, do it peacefully. If the police are being aggressive, record it, film it. Do not react, because you will not be shown the same leniency as the officers. You'll be charged, you'll be sentenced, you'll be imprisoned. We're all angry, but you will achieve far more for our cause and country outside of prison. And I reiterate the exact same thing.
On Tuesday morning, another knife attack occurred, this time in a school in northern Manchester. 3 people were injured, after which the school immediately went into lockdown. All 3 were taken to the hospital and are in stable condition. A 14-year-old girl has been arrested and remains in custody while the investigation is ongoing.
To think that these stories are becoming all too common. This was just today. These are 3 headlines that are on the top of a news search on Google. Northern Ireland police arrest man over barbaric knife attack, which is what we're discussing. Man who stabbed partner to death after she told him relationship was over, jailed for a minimum of 23 years. And 2 pupils and teachers stabbed at school in Manchester, forcing it into lockdown. So within the past 24 hours, as I referenced at the beginning of this video, there was a stabbing that took place in Manchester and a school went into lockdown. And, I mean, this is just days after everything regarding Henry Novak was released as well. It's just non-stop. These stories we're becoming numb to. These stories are becoming way too common. And what is the leading factor that is responsible for these taking place? It always leads back to the fact that we have mass migration that has taken place over the past 50, 60, 70 years, obviously way more in the past 20 years. That means our society is being utterly destroyed. And everything that my forefathers and other native Brits forefathers fought for, which is a free, high-trust society, is just being completely undermined.
Stay tuned for more breaking news across the networks. And moving on to Ukraine, on Monday, President Volodymyr Zelensky held a phone conversation with US envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. He described the talks as very positive and constructive, with a focus on ending the war with Russia. This follows President Trump's continued efforts to bring an end to the tension between the 2 nations. And the European Union has rolled out yet another sanctions package against Russia, number 21, in a series of measures that have largely failed to weaken Moscow's position. EU Foreign Affairs Representative Kaja Kallas announced new restrictions on LNG tanker resales to Russia, asset freezes on nearly 90 Russian banks, and sanctions on over 30 companies involved in drone production supporting Russia's defense industrial base. The proposals require unanimous approval by EU member states.
Today, we presented proposals for the 21st sanctions package. This includes a temporary freeze to its Russian oil price cap and measures against institutions used by Moscow to circumvent EU sanctions, including banks, oil traders, refineries, and crypto operators in third countries. The EU will continue to target Russian revenues to force Moscow to end its war. But we need to deprive Russia not only of the money, but also the assets that they need to fund this war. The minister and I also discussed reports that sanctioned Russian defense companies may be benefiting from significant volumes of Irish aluminium imports. As the minister said, investigations into these allegations are ongoing. Alumina is not currently covered by the EU sanctions. Europe must close all loopholes, tighten sanctions enforcement, and ensure our commitments are backed by deeds. No European products should end up in drones and missiles that kill Ukrainian civilians.
As part of the sanctions package, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced a controversial proposal to ban anyone from entering into the European Union who has served in the Russian armed forces since the beginning of the war. Critics have questioned the logic of this measure, with one user on X raising the question whether all Germans should also be banned, since they are descendants of Nazi Germany.
Today we are putting forward the 21st sanctions package. We focus on the sectors with the highest impact, that is energy, it is financial services and crypto, trade, and this time it includes for the very first time fisheries, and we are banning the entry of former Russian combatants into the European Union. I also want to mention one key point of this new aspect. We propose for the first time to ban from entry into the European Union anyone who has served in the Russian armed forces since the beginning of the war. So, Europe stays off limit for anyone who has participated in the invasion of Ukraine, as simple as that.
On Monday, Canadian Liberal Member of Parliament Ivan Baker introduced Private Members Bill C-283 in the House of Commons. The bill proposes to designate the entire month of July every year as Somali Heritage Month. Baker stated that the purpose would be to recognize and celebrate the contributions of Canadians of Somali heritage to Canada's economic, political, social, and cultural life, and also to acknowledge Canada's role in supporting Somali Canadian communities. However, critics are questioning the rationale in using parliamentary time and taxpayer resources for a private member's bill on heritage recognition, amid pressuring issues such as housing affordability, crime, healthcare, and economic pressures.
Mr. Baker, seconded by Mr. Hussain, moves for leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Establish Somali Heritage Month. The motion is deemed adopted. The honourable member for Etobicoke Centre.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce a bill entitled An Act Respecting Somali Heritage Month. If passed, the bill would declare July of every year Somali Heritage Month across Canada. I'd like to thank the member for York South West and Etobicoke for co-sponsoring this bill with me, and I hope members on all sides of the chamber will support this bill. Canada is home to many Canadians of Somali heritage. They have left and continue to leave an important mark on our country and communities across the country, and they have touched our economic, political, social, and political life. Somali Heritage Month would give us an opportunity to celebrate that heritage, the role that Canada has played in supporting Somali Canadians, and to celebrate their contributions to Canada. Every July, it would give Somali Canadians another reason to celebrate their Canadian pride and another reason to say, Somalia Hanolato. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
More stories coming up after this short break. Stay with us.
the testimonies. You've seen the demonstration of the supernatural, but you haven't watched it told this way. Do you believe in miracles? Updated edition.
You're free from it.
A classic compilation of outstanding miracles, healings, and transformations. Relive the unforgettable meetings where lives were changed in moments.
Do you believe in miracles? This is an updated edition, so you can get it for yourself.
Do you believe in miracles? Updated edition. Now available on the Pastor Chris Digital Library. Get your copy today. Also available on other video formats. To place your order, please call the number now displayed on your screen. Hurry now.
He loves you and wants you well.
Following the downing of an American Army Apache helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz on Monday, the United States conducted retaliatory airstrikes on Iranian targets yesterday. The US Central Command launched self-defense strikes targeting Iranian air defenses, radar sites, and control stations near the strait. CENTCOM described the mission in a post on X as a proportional response to unjustified Iranian aggression.
Yeah, it was announced just as we were walking in here, there is a defensive strike that has been taken. It is proportional and limited. The White House and the Pentagon have announced and said it's against unjustified Iranian aggression. They did notify me as the leader of the House before this began, and it's targeted strikes to the radar, missile, and command and control sites, and it is defensive in nature. We lament that that has become necessary, and the reason it did, as you all know, is because Iran struck U.S. assets and personnel. We can't allow that, and so we're going to have to take care of this business. So I was at the White House today. I think it was a couple hours in the Situation Room this morning, and the Vice President was there, Secretary of State, Secretary of War, the CIA Director, and others. We were with the President, and we talked about Iran and a number of other matters, including FISA's reauthorization. And let me just say, because this is part of the question, and some of you will ask, we must get FISA reauthorized. FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, is the #1 national security intelligence tool that we have. Roughly 2/3 of the President's daily national security briefing comes from intelligence that is collected from us surveilling foreign dangerous people, terrorists, and others who mean Americans harm. We can't let it go dark. It expires on Friday. And we in the House passed a reauthorization of FISA back in April, on April 29th. And it had some more meaningful reforms to tighten it up and make sure that it works well and as designed. We passed that. It's been sitting in the Senate. They had been working on a bicameral, bipartisan solution to get this done, and that was working well until just a few days ago when the Democrats decided once again, like they decided not to fund border and immigration enforcement, they decided now they don't want to reauthorize FISA.
Iranian officials, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, have denied deliberately targeting or shooting down the US helicopter, saying that any potential involvement could be a result from human errors, plane accidents, or being caught in crossfire involving foreign forces operating near Iranian territory. In retaliation to America's self-defense measures, early this morning, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claimed responsibility for drone and missile attacks targeting US military facilities in Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait. And on Tuesday, the Republican-led House of Representatives passed the Secure America Act by a narrow 214 to 212 vote. The bill marks a major win for the Trump administration, which includes $70 billion that will fully fund ICE, Border Patrol, and key immigration enforcement operations through the remainder of President Trump's term, ensuring President Trump can deliver on the promises he made during his campaign trail.
Just a few moments ago, the House Republicans voted to end the Democrat Department of Homeland Security shutdown once and for all. And we are pleased to tell you that we'll be funding for the next 3 years our border security and immigration enforcement. These are critical agencies and critical functions of the federal government, to state the obvious. And it's rather shocking to us that Democrats wanted none of it. We have 3 full years of funding now. And there is not a Democrat here who voted to support that. But what we've done now by funding it for 3 years is we've taken away their ability to cut that funding, to block that funding, or to take hostage the funding for the remainder of the Trump administration. And again, it's rather sad and shocking to us that it came to this, but that's the time we're in. A partisan vote to fund the enforcement of federal immigration law. Just think of it. But this is good news for everybody except Washington Democrats, okay? They gained absolutely nothing from their reckless crusade to return our country to open borders and unfettered mass migration. House Republicans will always stand with America's law enforcement, and we will always work to ensure that these brave men and women have the resources they need to carry out their responsibilities, to protect America's families and communities, and to prevent tragedies like the murder of Laken Riley, Sheridan Gorman, and so many other precious lives that have been lost as a result of President Biden and the Democrats' open border policies for 4 years. Every single leader who voted to defund ICE and CBP should remember the faces and the stories of those Americans that we have lost. The American people are going to remember it. They're going to remember, too, that it was Republicans and Republicans alone who did the responsible thing and funded these critically important agencies at this critical time. Democrats, on the other hand, demonstrated to the entire country once again how little they prioritize the security of our borders and the livelihoods of those who put their own lives at risk and on the line to defend our homeland. Today's Democratic Party has sadly been infiltrated with an insurgent wing of radicals, Marxists, categories of people that would never even considered running for office before, but that's who we have. And they are fundamentally opposed to the underlying mission of our border and immigration agencies. And this Republican majority and the American people are not going to abide that.
Let's take a recap of today's headlines. A 30-year-old Sudanese national has been charged with attempted murder as immigration tensions flare across the United Kingdom following the Belfast knife attack.
Shortly after 10:30 p.m. last night, a man in his 40s was subjected to an horrific sustained knife attack in a street in North Belfast.
Britons are mobilizing for immigration protests across the United Kingdom.
Patriots, if you are protesting tonight in Belfast or elsewhere, do not give Starmer what he wants. Stay calm, keep your heads, do not attack the police. The state will show you no mercy.
The European Union unveiled its 21st sanctions package against Russia on Tuesday.
The EU will continue to target Russian revenues to force Moscow to end its war. But we need to deprive Russia not only of the money, but also the assets that they need to fund this war.
The United States launched retaliatory airstrikes on Iranian targets following the downing of a military helicopter near the Strait of Hormuz.
There is a defensive strike that has been taken. It is proportional and limited. The White House and the Pentagon have announced and said it's against unjustified Iranian aggression.
I'm Melissa Negrini reporting for the Love World Networks.